We have had a few techie issues. Now, neither Tiff nor I, Tiff, I'm just going to mute you. Hold on one second. Neither Tiff nor I are techie. It's just taken us a little while to get us going, to get this working. So I really do hope this is working and hope you can see us. If not, if all else fails, then Tiff and I will re-record our chat and we'll post it out. But I think we're gonna go with it and hope that it's all working. So I'll just do a bit of an introduction. And then we've got a long list here of all the questions that people have been sending both Tiff and I, and we will go through them as an informal chat. But just by way of introduction, for anyone who's joining us for the first time, then I'm Ali Mortimer. I'm the founder of Heal Yourself Happy, and I'm a health and happiness coach. I'm also a mindfulness coach and a meditation tutor. And I work with highly purposeful people who've been through a bit of a traumatic or life-changing experience, and they're feeling vulnerable, lost and alone, and I take them by the wing. Oh, look, someone's asked us a question. Look, we must be live. Do you have any thoughts on the body's set point? Okay, we'll come back to that. We will look at all the questions, but we'll just go with what we've got at the moment. So I help these highly purposeful people who are feeling vulnerable, lost and alone, and I help them rediscover their self-esteem, and I help them rediscover their motivation and their zest for life. And I help them do that by using my signature 7-step framework. It's the Heal Yourself Happy methodology. My lovely clients call me the fixer of hearts, because really, ultimately, that's what I do. People come to me with a broken heart, whether that's from a loss of anything, and that could be the death of somebody close to them. It could be the end of a career, an end of a relationship, or maybe they've just lost touch with themselves and they don't know who they are anymore. And I help them piece their lives back together so that they feel like they've got a full heart and their full soul back together again. And then I unleash them into the world so that they can go on and create and live a happier, healthier life and create this wonderful ripple effect around them of health and happiness. Now, that's me in a nutshell. And I'm so excited to have one of my oldest and most darling friends. We've known each other for goodness knows how long, probably since we were in our teens. We were at school together many, many years ago. And then, like many friendships, kind of went on our own journeys and our own paths, and then reconnected probably 4 or 5 years ago, really through we both love food, and we have a real passion for food, but also for health. And we reconnected that, and we started our journeys as health coaches on similar times, but we've kind of gone on this health coaching path, and we've gone in slightly different ways. I've gone down kind of like the mindfulness meditation route, and Tiff is specializing in nutrition and diet and health, and she's amazing, which is why I asked her. I had this inspired thought in the shower yesterday morning and left her a random message saying, will you come and do a live with me and help me answer some foodie questions? So I'm so delighted that she's here with us today, and I'm going to let her do a little bit of an intro. So I'm going to put myself on mute, and Tiff, I'm going to hand over to you, darling.
Thank you. Am I off mute now? Yes. Well, thanks. Yeah, thanks for that, Ali. I will now tell you guys a bit about me. So I've been a health coach for about 5 years now. And I, as Ali said, I sort of specialise in nutrition and food and exercise, and more the kind of physical than the mental stuff. And I have been, doing it for about 5 years. And before that, I was a reporter for ITV, and that sort of led me into the health coaching, strangely, because I was doing all these mental hours. I was doing night shifts. I was flying around the world, and I was sort of surviving on coffee and sugar, really. And it was getting harder and harder. And I had 2 little children, and I was absolutely wrung out and doing all the wrong things for my body. I had terrible IBS sort of symptoms that actually carried on for a long time after I stopped the night shifts and things. I didn't know how to manage my own stress. I was just in all sorts of trouble. And then we had a massive life change, and we moved to China, of all places. And so I decided to retrain, and I studied at the same place that Ali did, the Institute of Integrative Nutrition in New York. And then I became a health coach. And actually, it was amazing doing it out in China, because I had this big platform. Other people weren't doing it over there. It was quite strange doing it with the Chinese, because they have very different views on health than we do. And some of the ways they think were really alien to me as well. But, my practice really got going over there, and it went brilliantly. And I started doing corporate health coaching, and I went into Nike and Adidas and other really big names over there, and it was brilliant and really well received. And then we moved back here in the last summer, and I've continued with my health coaching over here, and focusing a lot on corporate stuff, but also on one-to-one with clients as well. And I love that balance, So yes, that's me. Let's get started.
Let's get going. So we both agreed that this was going to be a really informal chat, and we're just going to have a discussion about some of the hot topics that people have asked us. If you've got questions, then please do just post them over on the comments, and we'll come back to them. But we're just going to start by going through. I'm just going to while I'm talking. Are you getting feedback so far?
Yes.
Okay, I'll mute us both as we talk. Okay. So first questions were, well, the first question popped up from my lovely friend Bing, and I know she's got 3 kids. She works in the city. She's like on a train like for 3 hours a day going backwards and forwards. So I imagine quite typical of a lot of people who work in the city. And she says her biggest challenge is nutrition on the run. What can I eat when I'm in a rush? A nutritious breakfast in the car driving to the station, or in 5 minutes at work. I hate porridge and overnight oats, which is always my go-to. And I can see you nodding. Everything, like making a smoothie, takes so long. But what she does realise is that eating good nutrition and nutritious food is an act of self-love. So she recognises probably by deprioritising herself in the morning she's not loving herself enough. So but if we can give her some really great ideas, and I know you're the queen of great foodie tips, so I'm going to hand over to you.
Oh gosh, well, I'm not sure I am the queen, but I do have a few ideas. And because I saw this question earlier, I've had a little think about it. And you're right, Ali, when someone says, yeah, I don't eat overnight oats or porridge, you're like, oh no. So my next go-to would be eggs. And, eggs are massively high in protein. They're really good for you. And they're also really portable. So if you like eggs, my suggestion is boil a couple of eggs. In fact, you can pre-boil. You can do a lot on Sunday, and then spread them out throughout the week, as long as you keep them in the fridge. And I would take boiled eggs with chopped up veggies. If you like sourdough, I would take in sourdough with maybe a nut butter. The other really good thing that's very portable are little pots of Greek yogurt that you could put berries in. You could put nuts and seeds in. Again, you could put a nut butter in. And another one that's really good, Bing, if you want to try this at home on a Sunday and you've got time to do this, are egg muffins. Super quick. You mix up 6 eggs with a splash of milk, some chopped up ham, some chopped up spinach, or any old, veggies that you fancy in there. And then you spray a muffin tray very lightly with olive oil, and you pour the egg mixture into each of the wells, and then you literally just bake them for 10 minutes and bring them out. And then you can have those during the week as little egg muffins that you take into work with you. Trust me, they won't last the week. They're really yummy. But add some salt and pepper as well. Are you trying to say something?
So excited to say something. I just wanted to say, and you said you weren't the queen. I mean, there we go. You are the queen of quick tips.
But there's one thing I did want to say, actually, and that is, if you're not hungry first thing in the morning, I think we're all led to believe that, if we don't have breakfast, we'll balloon. It's just not true, that. And if you're not hungry, you need to start re-listening to your body. And if you're fine to wait until you get into the office and then to have something, as opposed to eating in the car when you're in quite a stressed state, and it's a really sort of mindful way of eating, and your digestive system doesn't like it when you're rushing like that. I would suggest either just skipping it altogether and waiting till you get to the office, and you can have something nutritious. Or getting up a little bit earlier, which I know is a horrible option, isn't it? But just don't feel pressured into eating breakfast. That's all I'm saying.
I think that's a really valid point, and also you want around listening to your body as well. When I saw that question, there were a couple of things. Nuts, fruit. I said you could take like little snack pots. You could make some energy seed bars, and I know both you and I have got recipes for those, which we can share. So if you do feel like you need to eat something on the run to keep you going, so you don't arrive hangry into the office, or if you're rushing straight into the office and you've got something. But the mindfulness piece about making sure that when you eat, as opposed to running and eating. I mean, there's a great Zen proverb, isn't there? Is, walk when walking, eat when eating. It's just that focus on one thing at a time, and also allow by mindfully eating, whether that be your delicious egg muffin or whatever it is, or your sourdough nut butter sandwich, it's just actually you take the time to savor it, because then your body knows that you're eating, and then it recognizes that you've eaten. It's okay to digest it, and it will wake everything up, and then you're not going to be feeling hungry later because you've actually recognized that point as well. So I think that's really good. I was also going to touch on, seeing as it leads quite nicely into another question that we just got answered right at the end, was around if you're not hungry in the morning, then don't stress about not eating, because that can also then lead into this whole kind of time restricted eating and time restricted fasting. So somebody just said, can you comment on time restricted eating and time restricted fasting? And I know that's something I love to do, minimum 12 hours, regardless. I will always leave my microbiome soldiers their rest. And I know I talk about this a lot, but Dal, because you're such an expert on the whole area, go on, you give me your views on time restricted eating and fasting, why it's so good.
Well, I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I've definitely tried it, and I've tried it with clients as well. And I think you're absolutely right. Your digestive system needs a break at night. And certainly, when I did my old job, it never had a break because I was just eating all night. No wonder I was in a mess. But not just that, now that I do normal hours, thankfully, you still need to give it a break at night. And I think this is something I mentioned to Al earlier. I was saying that if you find you're an evening eater, and you just snack all night, you have to just mentally go, kitchen closed. You've had dinner, you put the stuff in the dishwasher, and you say kitchen is closed, and you don't go back there until, the next morning, 12 hours later. And, the fast that's talked about a lot is the 16-8, which sounds awful if you've never fasted before, but actually is fairly doable. So if you want to try it, I would, that's a good one to start with. So you go without food for 16 hours and then you eat within an 8-hour window. If it's too much for you, God, don't. Just really listen to your body. And as Ali said, 12 hours is great. It's a brilliant way to start. And it works for some and it doesn't work for others. But I found with clients who want to lose weight, it's often quite a good tool for them as well.
I was talking to a client last night. She was asking me about intermittent fasting and what it all kind of meant. And I described it. So if you want to understand the theory behind it, it's all about your microbiome. And our microbiome are our good gut bacteria. So they live in our intestinal tract. And what they do is if you can imagine them as an army, and I was trying to explain to her, I imagine myself with this colony of little soldiers in my tummy, and they are there, mashing all day, working away to digest our food and help us feel really strong and healthy. And, our immunity is born in our gut. And so if they're healthy, we are healthy. So we need to think about nurturing those soldiers and those little gut bacteria in our tummies. So if you can imagine that that's what you're doing, you're nurturing your army of soldiers in your tummy. So one, you want to feed them some really good food, and we'll come on to that in a minute and what that looks like. But then you also need to give your army a rest. So a minimum of 12 hours is what they need. And then that will mean that your digestive system is really good and that they can carry on working really, really well. If you want to do kind of the longer time, sometimes start with 12 and then work up as you get to know your body, because sometimes going cold turkey for some people can find it a little bit too stressful, and we don't want people to be stressed about it. But start 12 and then maybe do 12 for a week or 4 days, and then build up and do 13 hours, 14 hours, 15 hours, or just find what works for you. I mean, we've got a mutual friend, my darling friend Nick. She is a massive fan of intermittent fasting. She actually got me into it and reading up about it. And there's some wonderful articles about there, specifically if you want to listen to a Dr. Chatterjee audio. He is brilliant about the guy, I want to say Sachin Panda, was it Sachin Panda or something like that? Dr. Sachin Panda has done so many amazing studies on this. So simple tip then, I think what we're saying is intermittent fasting, yes, minimum 12 hours, so beneficial for everybody to do. If you want to do, if you're really struggling with IBS, if you've got weight, if you're struggling to lose weight, then go up a bit, 14, 16. Oh, Tiff, she's watching. She just said, ladies, you're super. So we've just been chatting about Nick. Sorry, everyone. So she's watching. So yeah, go with your intermittent fasting, minimum 12, work out what works for you. And just imagine your colony of soldiers in your tummy. You want to imagine them as really strong, healthy army guys. like Arnie's and Terminator, as opposed to knackered little men. I don't know who a knackered man would be, but anything.
Am I on mute still?
No, you're on.
Oh, hi. So yeah, the one thing I will say though, with intermittent fasting, it doesn't mean that you can eat just anything you want in those hours when you are able to eat. Like, you can't go and eat 12 McDonald's and loads of chocolate bars. I mean, it's just, you have to still be sensible within that time. I think personally, just what it does is it just prevents all the snacking at the end of the day. It sort of stops you doing that, the unnecessary bits that you don't really need, that aren't nourishing your body.
Yes. Sorry, it's so true. And do you know what? I know we both love my legendary dad, but he always said to me, Al, people didn't get fat when I was younger. When we ate potatoes, we just didn't eat biscuits after dinner time. I love my dad. He just makes things so simple. So we've covered a bit of intermittent fasting there, and we've covered off breakfast. So I hope that really helps. Right, okay, the next one. So, and I think we'll touch on, they're probably all crossing over, but the next questions are really around cravings and then also healthy alternatives. So we've got Neil, who's saying that his biggest challenge is laying off snacking crisps, chocolate, peanuts and stuff, and it just doesn't happen. Bing has also said the biggest challenge, that it says junk food in the house, then I'm going to eat it. She's been eating lots of Cadbury's cream eggs recently. Quite possibly a lot of us have done that as well. Beth says that sweet cravings and carbohydrates when she's feeling stressed and tired. Alex also says, my biggest challenge is resisting buttery toast. I mean, who can't resist a bit of buttery toast? I mean, how do I control the urge? Is my body craving something? So a lot of it about cravings. And when we touched on it earlier, we were kind of going to play this in two parts, weren't we? There's the whole kind of like mindfulness side, and then there's the whole kind of like healthy alternative side. So I'm going to kick off with a little bit about cravings when it comes to kind of like mindfulness. And our bodies, I fundamentally believe that our bodies are incredibly intelligent things. And if you have a craving for something, it's often a sign that it's trying to tell you something. So I believe that there are 8 different callings from your body when it comes to cravings. And I can quickly go through them now. But if anybody wants more details, then please do get in touch afterwards. But it's usually a sign that something's missing. So it could be that you're trying to fill a hole. You're trying to fill a hole, but you're filling it with food rather than something else. So it's about bringing mindfulness into this and just thinking, do I really want to eat this packet of biscuits? Do I really want to drink this bottle of wine? Do I really want to? Am I wanting the wine? Am I wanting the chocolate? Or is it trying to fill something else or make up for a lack of something else? Is it making up because I'm lonely or I'm miserable in my job, or there's something that's really stressing me out at the moment? And perhaps if maybe we just mention here at the moment that I think we all need to give ourselves a little bit of a cut ourselves a bit of a slack. Now, it was interesting yesterday. So Tiff and I are obviously both health coaches. We're part of the UK Health Coaching Association. And one of our lovely fellow health coaches put up a post talking about how much she was craving chocolate at the time. And in the evening, she normally was very healthy, all of these things, but every night she's going for the dark chocolate. And if it's not dark chocolate, then it's wine and olives. So I think there's an important message to say here, that just cut yourself a little bit of slack right now. Everything's a little bit weird and not happening as we would normally expect it. So to try to stress yourself out by stressing about the fact that you've had a chocolate bar or biscuit or a bottle of wine, I would, almost let that go. Tiff, what are you craving at the moment? Mine's definitely chocolate.
Oh, well, it sort of varies. Definitely wine at weekends, but I'm trying to give my body a break during the week. So actually it gives you something to look forward to, But just to, and I know you're carrying on, but I will say, I think you're absolutely right about the body knowing what it wants. And I know I went through a period in my life when I was very ill and weirdly was craving cashew nuts, and I didn't really understand why. And a doctor actually told me that they're really high in iron, and that I had actually very low levels of iron at the time. So I was like, God, it's so strange. Your body does tell you, doesn't it?
Sorry, I forgot to unmute myself. I think it massively really does. And just to quickly go through those 8 kind of questions you can ask yourself, then, as I said, it could be that you're filling a hole. So is there a lack of nourishment in one area of your life? So what is the void you're trying to fill? Another one, sometimes craving could just mean that you're really thirsty. You're lacking, hydration. So make sure you have a drink of water. That can be your first go-to. If you've got that urge for that piece of toast or that Cadbury's cream egg, then maybe just go and have a really nice glass of water. So that could be one thing. Sometimes your body's trying to tell you that there's an imbalance in your diet. So if you're craving sugary things, it could be that you do need some sweetness in your life, and that you can get that from other areas. And Tiff, I'm sure you'll come onto it, but it could be things like sweet potatoes, or I can't think of anything else at the moment, but there's lots of other like nice sweet things that you can have as a healthy alternative to kind of like the sugary snacks. Then other things, it could be seasonal. So you could be craving hot food, cold food. If you're craving really salty, sugary snacks, that's often a sign of an imbalance in minerals and vitamins. So it's about having a look at your diet as a whole. So really, it's just about questioning yourself as where is this urge, where is this craving coming from? There could also be an element of self-sabotage. That's another one. Sometimes you think, well, everything's going so well, I've lost so much weight, or everything's great in my life, I might as well mess it all up by doing this. You could be if you've got a self-sabotaging kind of nature, that could be why you're doing it. Another one could be hormonal. Sometimes our hormones go up and down. So just ask yourself, is this my hormones talking? Do I really want to go down this road? Just ask yourself. So it's really, really, really about connecting with yourself, asking yourself what's wrong, why do you want it? Are you stressed? Are you lonely? And then just working out what could you do instead? So if you're going for that glass of wine to help you relax, maybe think about what else helps me relax too. Could it be that I need to go for a walk? Do I need to go for a run? Some people like to run and that de-stresses them. I know you and I both love to do that sort of thing. Could it be that you need to take a bath or do a meditation? Just have a list of things that that you could do instead of. And then when you've gone through that, make the conscious choice, I'm still going to have a glass of wine, or go, no, I'm not going to have a glass of wine, I'm going to go for a walk instead, and see if that makes me feel better. Likewise, if you're feeling, lonely, what can you do other than fill that void with a packet of biscuits? Could it be that you ring your mates, or, get in touch with somebody else, but don't just sit there and fill that void with something that's going to make you feel bad later. So just really let go of that urge, and by asking yourself those really powerful questions. So Tiff, that's what I was going to talk about in terms of, the whole mindfulness connection thing. Have you got some great ideas on what people can do in terms of maybe some of the healthy alternatives from the chocolates and the sweets and the butter?
Oh, yes, I think you muted there again. Yes, I've got loads. I could go on and on and on, but let me start with a couple. So the first thing is, the easiest way not to snack on junk is just not to have it in the house. Yeah. And I know that sounds obvious, and if you've got kids, it's really hard, isn't it? Because, we all get chocolate and biscuits in for them, even us health coaches. But, what you need to do is be prepared with other stuff. Okay. So if you're going for a sweet hit, something that I think is absolutely brilliant for after dinner is to peel bananas, to chop them in half and to put them in the freezer. And the same with grapes. And when you take them out, it's honestly like eating ice cream. And actually what you can do is liquidize or blend or whatever your frozen banana chunks. You could put some cacao nibs in it and make it chocolate and banana. You could put some peanut butter in, or just have it straight up, whizzed up, just the banana. It's off the scale delicious. Please try it. You could also add bags of sort of frozen berries, frozen raspberries. Another really good snack I like to have at home is to make my own sort of trail mix. So get some air popped popcorn. So not the crap you get in the cinemas, the uncaramelly stuff, sorry. And then add in sort of raw cashew nuts, some almonds, maybe some dried cranberries, any nut or seed or dried fruit that you like, and put it in a little Ziploc bag, give it a good shake. You can add a pinch of cinnamon if you want, which just gives it a nice sweetness, or you could add a tiny bit of salt and some cumin, make it a bit spicy. But homemade trail mix is great. Another winner, I think, is to get big lettuce leaves and spread them with something like hummus or another healthy dip, or like a tomato salsa, and then put in some nice lean ham or lean turkey or some tuna. And then maybe some slices of avocado, and roll them up so that you're having little lettuce roll-ups. They're brilliant as well.
You're making me so hungry.
Another thing I like to do for my kids is apple nachos. So slicing apples, I'm putting nut butter on, mostly peanut butter with my kids. And then you can sprinkle on some granola, which is delicious and gives it a lovely crunch. If anyone needs a nice granola recipe, I've got the absolute bomb of granola recipes, which is on my Instagram, which I'm sure we'll link to later. God, I mean, you know, there's so much stuff. And the classics like veggie sticks with hummus and dips and things like that. You can make a tzatziki out of Greek yogurt, lots of lemon juice, some very finely chopped up mint, very finely chopped up cucumber. Last one, Ali, I know I'm banging on, is get some of those whole wheat tortillas and put them in the oven, no oil or anything, on a piece of like baking parchment or foil. And they crisp up like a crisp, and then you can bring them out and just chop them up into triangles, and they're great for dipping into, you know, hummus or tzatziki or something like that. The other thing I just wanted to say, sorry, I know I'm going on, is you could make mini salads as well, so that you don't have to have the savory sort of things like salads just at meal time. So you could make a small Greek salad with, say, chopped up cucumber, black olives, tomatoes, and a bit of feta and a tiny bit of olive oil and balsamic vinegar, and you're much better off snacking on a little pot of that than you are a bag of crisps, for example. But yet you'll feel full, you know. So that's a winner. I could go on and on, but that's
I think we could do, couldn't we? I mean, there are so many delicious ideas, and I think the message coming from probably both of us is, one, just get prepared and make a conscious choice, because you can consciously choose to buy the crisps from the supermarket because someone's buying them, or you can choose to buy the crudité or the wraps that you just talked about. You know, it's a conscious choice about where you want to spend your money, how you spend your money, and then how you eat and put it in your mouth. But just prepare yourself, you know, prepare ahead, have a lovely time, you know, at the weekend, batch cooking, I know I do, or batch chopping, or just get everything prepared, involve the kids as well. You know, just like you said, I'm loving the idea of the apple with the nut butter and the granola on, because I do nut butter, but didn't put granola on. God, that's going to be my evening snack of choice. Well, hang on, let me unmute you. Sorry, Dal, say again.
And it also works with bananas.
Yeah.
Greek yogurt is the other thing, in small pots, as we mentioned earlier, you know, because it's really high in protein as well, so it will keep you feeling full. I think the aim of the game is to try and have a bit of protein with every snack or every meal you have, because protein is the macronutrient that helps you feel full, along with healthy fats. But it really will help you, that.
Yeah, agreed. I agree. Go with the protein as much as you can. Yeah, lean protein. Definitely do that. So hopefully that's given everybody loads of great ideas in terms of healthy alternatives, and just go for that, you know, conscious choice, or just stop yourself, you know, stop and ask yourself, is this really what I want to do, or do I want to try one of Tiff's healthy ideas? And we'll definitely link you over to Tiff's ideas, because she's amazing. She's inspiring me all the time. Right, so the next question, so we're moving on from cravings, and we're going to go into a little bit about well, there's diets, and then there's different diets within a household. So, excuse me. Becky's asked, how do you maintain a healthy diet rather than going on a diet when crisis hits? So that's kind of like the first bit when it comes to diet. And then there's other people asking around the biggest challenges that Laura's asking. I'm a vegetarian. I've got one child with a nut allergy, and then I've got a fussy eater. She's not remotely interested in food and only uses it for fuel. Somebody else wants to know about gluten-free and how to quit sugar because she's got Hashimoto's and thyroid issues. So there's a whole host of stuff going on with that. I think should we just kick off quickly with the first question about how do you maintain a healthy diet rather than going on a crash diet? Now, I think we're both on the same wavelength as this one, but I believe that the only way to stick to a diet is if you find a diet that works for you. So it's all about bio-individuality, which is our buzzword from what we've learned and all of the work that we've done and our experience. And it's about becoming an expert in you. And that does take time. There's no magic fix. It's no quick fix. There's no one diet that fits everybody, and it's not going to fix you in 2 days. So it's about it goes back to this mindful eating, this connection with yourself, and really just going right back to the basics. And you probably all know it. You really, really do. It's not rocket science. It's just about eating really, really simply. And some of the key things that, and Tiff, I'm sure you'll add to it as well, but it's just going with more whole foods and reducing your refined foods. So it's not necessarily about cutting it all out. It's just about making conscious choices to eat more whole foods, foods cooked from scratch, than you do the refined foods. It's about making the conscious choice to drink more water and herbal tea than you do drink alcohol, fizzy drinks, caffeinated drinks. It's about making sure that you eat a balanced diet that's full of variety. So it's not necessarily about cutting out food groups unless you realize that that absolutely works for you, or if you've got an issue with it. So what I mean by that is there are so many diets out there that say cut out carbs, but that's given carbs a bad name. And what you really need to understand is they're talking about the refined carbs. So your pizzas, your cakes, and all of that sort of thing. They're not saying cut out potatoes, sweet potatoes, grains, rice. Those are all really fundamentally important for a whole balanced diet and to include variety. So eating the different colors of the rainbow, eat the different carbohydrates, and that's what makes it interesting. If you're just sticking to like one thing, you're going to get bored, and that's why you don't sustain it. So keep those ideas in mind. You know, it's just about a balance and a scale and lots of variety, and then just listening to your body. Listen to how your body responds. Coming to you right now, just like with Willie, my youngest, he's celiac. So we had to listen to his body. We were watching his body for the signs and realized that he couldn't eat gluten. So, right, we're a gluten-free family because of that. I then realized I had terrible IBS and bloating that just made me look like I was pregnant all the time. And it was only when I cut out dairy did that reduce. And that's why I choose not to, or have, you know, the non-dairy alternative. So it really is about this bio-individuality and working out what works for you. Tiff, over to you, my love.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you said. And I think also, you know, the word diet's awful, isn't it? And it's not really one we use anymore in the sort of wellness space. It's about having a way of eating that works for you. And also it's about adherence. So the most crucial thing, if you are trying to lose a few pounds, is that you can stick to whatever way of eating that you've chosen. So just because Susan in the office did keto and lost 12 pounds, it doesn't mean it's going to work for you, which is why actually you need to go and see someone like a health coach. You can look at exactly what you're doing, exactly, you know, how your hours work in the day, and to help you, you know, with a way of eating that really works for you. God, there were loads of other things as you were talking that I was thinking of, and now I can't think of any of them. I think the crowding out thing is a really key component when you're trying to lose a bit of weight or to have a healthier diet. And so what I often say to my clients, especially ones that work in an office, is when you go out at lunchtime, instead of buying a sandwich deal, getting a sandwich, a packet of crisps and a can of Coke, instead buy a massive bag of leaves, so spinach or kale or just lettuce, and get a punnet of cherry tomatoes, get some cooked chicken or cooked ham, get a tin of sweet corn, you know, things like that, and just bung them all in a massive bowl and make yourself a huge salad. And that is as quick as getting a sandwich. And crowding out is all about eating so much good stuff that actually there's not that much room for the processed and less healthy things. And it honestly really does work, because if you're filling yourself with fiber being found in fruit and vegetables predominantly, and whole grains, that you just haven't got space in your tummy for anything else. And you need healthy fats, because you really need them for your hormones and for various other things going on in your body. But so, you know, you get them through things like avocados, coconut oil, olive oil, nuts, nut butters. And I think, you know, don't be afraid of fat, and don't be afraid of carbs. You're absolutely right, Ali. It's just ridiculous. And we need the fiber from carbohydrates. We really do. I know what I was going to say. It's come back to me. Portion control. That's the thing. You know, we all live in this society now where we're given massive portions of everything. And also be very careful when you're buying something. You might look at the back of a packet and it might say, you know, X and X calories, you know, per serving. But what you don't realize, there are 6 servings in the box, not just one. And before you realize it, you've eaten enough for 6 people, you know. So portion control is key. I know Ali believes in this way of doing it as well, but protein the size of your fist. Yeah. Complex carbs like this. That's fist, isn't it? Palm. That would be a palm, Tiffany. Fist, complex carbs, and then a sort of thumb size of healthy fats, and then masses of green leafy veg.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. Protein the size, the thickness of the palm of your hands, complex carbs, fist size, fats, that, loads of leafy greens. Couple of questions in that, just one I've seen pop up, and another thing I would just wanted to pick up on. So many people, you know, like we're saying, don't be afraid of eating carbs, don't be afraid of eating fats. I think there's also an element of don't be afraid of eating too much, because if you're eating, you can't eat too much of the right thing. Like, eat loads and loads of broccoli is not going to make you fat. So I think there's a misconception that if you eat less, you'll lose weight. And I know I've been there in the past, and actually you can end up putting on weight because your body holds on to fat storage because it feels you're starving it. So it goes into shock mode and holds on to it. So you're better off eating regularly in the right portions and of the right things, and that will help you lose weight. You don't, I've been working with one client, and it's slowly sinking in with him that actually to go on a crash diet is only making him worse. So eat properly, and about relearning how to eat. Now, Naomi's just asked, best vegan protein. Tiff, what would you say to that?
Well, I mean, you know, things like, I guess, seitan. Have you heard of something called seitan? Tofu, beans. I mean, I'm not vegan, but I would suggest, yeah, lots of different legumes and beans, nuts, the obvious ones. But the one thing I would say is that I think nowadays there are so many different options available as well. So just experiment with stuff and see what works for you and your body. And also, you know, I think, you know, a couple of years ago, beans were considered a bit sort of hippy dippy, weren't they? But nowadays, there's so many amazing bean recipes.
Bean
I'd rather have a beanie stew or like a black bean brownie than I would, you know, a normal one. So, you know, there's loads of resources out there. Or come and speak to me or Ali, and we can help you, you know, with ideas.
I agree. I think there's an element as well in terms of, I mean, vegan has become cool and hip, and there are some great people to follow, like Deliciously Ella. You can get so many amazing recipes from her as well. I think I've worked with a couple of vegans, and I think sometimes you can get into the unhealthy mindset that being vegan is healthy, but then all you eat is chips because that's all that's available for you. So I think go into being vegan because you need to be vegan because that's how your body works best, or because you've got, you know, you believe strongly in being vegan, but don't just do it because you think it's going to make you lose weight, because you'll end up making the wrong choices. So I much prefer going plant-based. I much prefer that than saying vegan. I don't know why. It just sounds better to me. I just eat plants anyway. So I hope that helps in terms of the diet. So what else do we need to let's talk about then if we've got mixed diets in a household. So I'll start and then maybe you can add to it. So we have Willie, who's gluten-free because he's celiac. I'm dairy intolerant, so there's no dairy in our house. My husband is 6'5" and does a lot of working out, so he needs big food. And my other son, you know, he eats everything, but he also has a really healthy appetite. So the way that I work and cater for everybody is that I like to keep it really, really simple. And I think that's the only way to go in terms of when you're trying to cater for lots of different people. And if you don't like, I think, who was it who said, I think it was Laura, says she doesn't like cooking, she's not bothered about food. Then I think the other thing that you can do, and what I do, is I batch cook. I batch cook a lot of things. So things like quinoa that everybody can have. And then there's loads of that in the fridge. So that will go for supper and lunches for a couple of evenings. Lots of root veggies, I think, is always another really good one. And again, if you're thinking about the portion control that Tiff and I have just talked about, veggies is 50%, so that everyone can deal with that. You've got your complex carbs, so you can have, you know, your sweet potatoes, your brown rice, and your quinoa, and that's all good in there. Also, quinoa is good for protein for vegans, so you could just go with that. Or lentils, that's also another lovely one I love to cook. So that can be really simple. And then if anybody else wants kind of like the meat on top, then you just add the meat on top, because sometimes I prefer to just go plant-based. So I'll cook everybody else, you know, meat or chicken or whatever, and I'll just stick with the basics. So I think it's just about keeping it really simple and trying not to overcomplicate it by thinking I've got to have a different meal every night. Just, you know, have a few staples and then just mix and match, right? I've got these proteins and then I've got these, you know, salads or these veggie dishes and these kind of like carbohydrate dishes, and then mix and match. So it looks like you're getting lots of different things. So that's how I work it, to be honest, and keep it very, very simple. Tiff, would you add anything?
Well, yes, that's exactly how I do it too, Al. I will cook like the basis, which would be, say, vegetarian, but then add the meat in for those that want meat. And, you know, tomato based sauces and stews are really good because, you know, for example, you could give your kids tomato pasta with some grated cheese on. You could add some tuna in it for yourself, and then you could do meatballs for your husband, but you're still basically doing one meal if you wanted to. The other thing I was going to say, I think this is the lady that mentioned she's got a child who's quite a fussy eater. So the best way you can help a child who's a fussy eater is to get them in the kitchen with you. And I mean, even if you're just making cake and biscuits to start with, you know, they will learn about food and they'll develop an interest in it. So I know it's a hassle, and actually the last thing you want sometimes is your children in the kitchen with you, but do give it a go, because honestly they really develop an interest and they start understanding a bit more about food. And also this, as you mentioned, was the lady who said she doesn't think about food or doesn't have time to eat, I think. Now, I don't know her particular situation, and so it's very hard to comment. But if that means you're underweight, a really good way of getting nourishment into you is liquid calories. So making smoothies with high fat foods that are higher in calories, things like avocados, bananas, again, nut butters, that you can then literally just sip as you're walking around the house. I had a client when we lived in China whose husband was disabled, and she had 2 children under the age of 4, and she was thin as a reed and couldn't put any weight on. And we got her putting on the weight through those liquid calories, you know, lots of milk. Milk is incredibly nutritious. I know, Al, you can't do dairy, but for those people who can, or use dairy alternatives, you know, make milkshakes and smoothies and stuff like that.
That's what we've done with our kids. Get them really involved in the kitchen, like you say, cooking, baking, and now they love making their own smoothies, and that's lovely. So if they're hungry, it's like, well, go and make yourself a smoothie, and that can be quite low cost because all you need to do is buy loads of frozen berries, frozen spinach. Then they like, you know, as you say, dairy, or they have, dairy milk, or not as in chocolate milk, but as in cow's milk, or they like, it's coconut water, and they love making that. And in the summer, we don't put as much liquid in, and then it's like having ice cream. It's like melted ice cream. So with your frozen bananas that you were talking about earlier, that's a really nice thing to get them involved in. And then it just spirals from there. So I wholeheartedly agree. Get your kids in the kitchen, and then they'll start improving. Right, what else have we got? Quitting sugar. So top tips for quitting sugar. I remember when we did our training, there was a great lady who talked about quitting sugar, because obviously it can be so toxic for bodies in terms of inflammation in your body. And I know my body doesn't respond particularly well when I have too much, but in terms of like Hashimoto's and thyroid issues, then reducing sugar is really, really important to do that. And there are healthy alternatives to help you get off it. So like coconut sugar, and then there's rice malt syrup that you can use alternatives for if you're having those sugar cravings. Is there anything else you would add in terms of reducing sugar, Tiff?
I think you mustn't be afraid of natural sugars. That's the first thing I'll say. You know, it drives me insane when people are suggesting you shouldn't have fruit because of the sugar in it. It's just rubbish, that. And makes me really cross, because there's so many good nutrients in fruit. So, you know, do keep eating fruit. I think earlier we sort of mentioned a few snacky alternatives, but I think you want to look at your main meals, your 3 meals, and look at what you're having in those meals. Maybe increase the amount of protein you're eating. You know, make sure you have your protein, your healthy fats, your complex carbs, and your greens. And if you're eating properly at meal times, you shouldn't really need to snack in between. There was another really good point I was going to make there. What was it? It will come back to me. But really look at your main meals and what you're eating, because you shouldn't be having sugar cravings, really. And
again, goes back, if you are having those sugar cravings, go back to asking yourself, why have I got the craving? So listen to your body. Is it a lack of nourishment? Are you feeling a void? Is it, you know, all those questions we talked about earlier? So it could be going back to that. I mean, as a general rule, we shouldn't be eating lots and lots of sugar anyway. It's, you know, it's a condiment, not a main meal. And I agree. We should, if you can eat your 3 main meals, you shouldn't really be snacking in between anyway. And that goes back to the point of eat the right portion size and loads of veggies. Yeah, cool. Right, next question. What have we got? There's a few questions on emotional eating and levels of stress and something sweet later, but I think we've covered that in terms of the cravings already and what we've talked about. So the next one is really, a few people have been asking about the menopause, and then there's some questions about supplements. So I was going to start with the menopause. So somebody's asking about what diet do you need to have after the menopause. Someone's having lots of hot flushes, but nothing works. And are there certain foods that can help people with menopausal symptoms? So last year, I ran some menopause workshops, so I can start answering these questions, and Tiff, feel free to butt in or add in. But I think a lot of what we've been talking about already still applies to whether you're in the menopause or not in the menopause. It's just a healthy way. What did you say, Tiff, earlier? A healthy way of eating rather than dieting. You want to go right back to those basics that we really, really talked about. And, you know, if we can think about I'll just talk about menopause really, really quickly. But normally what happens is we have estrogen and progesterone, and halfway through the month, they switch over and the levels kind of counteract, and you're in balance with equal levels of progesterone and estrogen at any point in time during your cycle. What happens in the perimenopause and coming up to the menopause is that your levels start to go all over the place. So you feel really out of balance. And that's what's happening in your body. And that's so you've got this hormonal, your sexual hormones are out of balance, which what makes you feel out of balance. Now, there are certain things that you can do that can help that hormone imbalance, but there are a lot of things that you can do that make those hormonal imbalances worse. And that all goes back down to living a healthy lifestyle and the habits that you have. So, for example, drinking and smoking will disrupt that imbalance further. Dairy and gluten can often disrupt that. So dairy and some of the things that come through dairy. So just make sure you're eating organic dairy if you have it, or maybe try alternatives. What else? I'm thinking pesticides can be really bad. Pesticides are really bad hormonal disruptors. A lack of exercise. So just lifestyle habits, environmental toxins can have a really bad impact on the levels of your hormones. Stress and a lack of sleep, huge hormonal disruptors. So it goes right back to looking at your lifestyle as a whole, not necessarily just your diet. Your diet is going to be what we've been talking about all the way through this anyway, just making sure that you're eating a balanced diet full of variety, that's full of whole foods, and eating, you know, properly throughout the day rather than starving yourself. So in terms of diet, just go back to what Tiff and I have been already saying all the way through this. In terms of your lifestyle and your hormonal imbalance, then that's something for another day. But if you want to look at your lifestyle, then get in touch with a health coach. So either Tiff or I've got a program running at the moment. It's my self-study, which you can get for just £59.50, down from £595, that you can work through in your own time over a period of 12 weeks and beyond, that will help you get absolute clarity in each of those areas. So not only what you eat, but how you move, how you sleep, how you rest. And now there's a lovely quote by Dr. Christiane Northrup. She's one of my favorite writers on the topics of menopause, but she's also a gynecologist, surgeon and practitioner over in America. And she just says that menopause is our opportunity to wake up. Our body is telling us something. It's a new chapter of our life. So this is your wake up call to say, what's out of balance? Okay, my hormones are out of balance, but what else is out of balance in my life? You know, do I need to look at my work? Do I need to look at my relationships? What do I need to look at to make me feel better in balanced? And my programs really help you do that. So looking at your soul, who you are, who you're hanging out with, and what you want to do in this next chapter. So if you want to really work in that, then please do get in touch with me afterwards, and I'll send you some more information on how you can get absolute clarity on all of that. Also, your lifestyle has a massive impact on your diet. So while we've been talking about what you should eat, don't like that word should, what the best way of eating is, sometimes we get thrown off track, don't we? You know, I know that I eat a much healthier diet when I've had loads of sleep and when I'm exercising. You know, if I'm fully stressed, then I know I'm going to go for the chocolate. So there's always something that's going to impact your diet. It's being really cognizant of that it's not just diet that's going to be the answer. It's your whole life that affects what you eat, not what you eat affecting your life. It's the other way around. It really is outside in, not inside out. I think I mean that, from your plate, don't I? Yeah, that's what I mean. So that's what I would say in terms of the menopause. There are some really simple ones. So if you're having the hot flushes, then just listen to what your body's telling you. It's telling you it's trying to detox. It's sweating. So it's sweating out the toxins. So you probably need to look at your diet or your environment to work out what toxins you're putting in your body so that it doesn't need to. So alleviate that. But then also just make sure you're drinking loads and loads of water to flush out the toxins. So that's what I would say in terms of hot flushes specifically. Is that what she asked? Chronic fatigue. So if you've got chronic fatigue, then again, make sure you're eating all the right foods. Look at your diet, what you're eating. Make sure you're getting the right sleep. Look at your stress level. So it all goes back to your holistic lifestyle, not necessarily just your diet. Is there anything else, Tiff, that you would add, my love?
Yes. So post-menopause, on a very practical level, sadly, ladies, it is harder to lose weight once you've been through the menopause. It's science, annoyingly. But a couple of things you can do: increase the amount of protein you're eating. A, it will keep you feeling fuller, but B, after the menopause, you're more likely to have something called sarcopenia, which is muscle sort of breakdown. So you need to increase the amount of protein you eat. Also, increase your NEAT, which is non-exercise activity thermogenesis. And so that is stuff like not going to the gym, but things like getting up and down, going shopping, doing a bit of gardening, brushing your hair. You know, that's NEAT, is all the other things, all the little things. And you might look like a nutter, but just keep doing all those little things. Be active. And, you know, we all know someone who's super thin and but they don't really seem to do anything formal, but then when you're with them, you're like, Christ, this person never sits still. And they, you know, they have naturally very, very high levels of NEAT. So keep moving all the time if you can. Start trying to do body weight exercises as well post-menopause. It's been shown to really help as well. Vitamin D supplementation. We should all be getting vitamin D supplements at the moment, unless you're spending a lot of time in the garden. We'll go on to that in the next answer, I think. And omega-3s, if you're going to supplement with anything, which you can get from oily fish. If you eat oily fish 3 times a week, then you're probably all right. But if you don't, then I would take a supplement.
Shall we move on to supplements?
Yes.
Let's move on to that one. I know you're the queen of supplements because you're the person I always ask for when it comes to supplements. I've lost my question. So here we go. Supplements. There are so many suppliers. How to tell a good one to a bad one, and whether you should be taking a probiotic regularly, and I would say that we should. Which one is best for your gut health and easing digestion? So supplements, how do we tell good ones? Which ones should we take, basically? And probiotics. Do you want to answer that, Tim?
Okay. Well, I think supplements is a really tricky one because, God, you know, really, who knows whether they're, you know, what's a good one and what's a bad one. It's a really difficult thing to advise on unless I was sat in front of someone and saw their very specific symptoms. You can't really just suggest a blanket set of things. The couple of ones I would say it's worth supplementing on are vitamin D, as I mentioned. And a probiotic I use is called Optibac, and I can't really say this, Saccharomyces boulardii, which has more scientific evidence behind it as to it working than many of the others. And that normally is if you're suffering from things like diarrhea. So that's a really good one, I think, as well. Also, omega-3s. In terms of brands, you know, I would hate to say one above the other, but the nice guidelines are that start taking something like a probiotic, one single brand, take it the recommended amount for a month and monitor your symptoms. And if they get better, then it's obviously working. And if it's done nothing, then forget it. So, you know, supplementation is a really hard one, and I don't really feel that qualified to say too much on it, but I think it's a case of trial and error. I wouldn't bother with loads of other things. I would go for omega-3s, vitamin D, and a decent probiotic. And if you want to take a multivitamin just to cover all bases, do. But the really crucial thing is food first. If you've got a healthy, balanced, varied diet, loads of different colours in it, natural colours, then you should be getting all the nutrients you need. And, you know, otherwise go and get yourself properly checked out by a doctor and tests done to see what you really do need.
Yeah, I agree, Tiff. That's Perfect. Thank you. I totally agree. Food first. Shouldn't need anything else. If we're having what we've discussed, which is a wide variety of really healthy foods, we should be okay. Vitamin D, yeah, as we talk, because we don't necessarily always get what we need. Probiotic to support our little soldiers, which we talked about right at the beginning. And then I think it just goes back to your point. It's just that, you know, talking about taking them for a month and see if your symptoms improve. It's just about what we've been talking all the way through, which is about getting to know you and your body in terms of what you eat. So just keep a diary, a tracker. I'm a big believer in a tracker. What you're eating, what you're taking, how you're sleeping, and how you're feeling. And do it without any kind of judgment. Just do it to monitor it initially. And then at the end of the month, just go back and have a look and see if there are patterns. You know, somebody was asking me about diet. I think there's another question I've noted down just at the last minute in terms of dieting and food during your cycle. I don't think it really necessarily changes during your cycle if you're eating a really varied, balanced diet. So I think it's just about getting to know your body, and then you know what you need or what you might crave in different times during your month, and then getting yourself prepared to think, well, towards the end of the month, I'm going to crave sugar. So I need to make sure that I've got some of those lovely snacks so that I don't reach for the wrong thing. A couple of questions that have just popped up, I've just noticed. This question is so interesting. It's all about the scales. Now, I hate the scales because I've had such a love-hate relationship with my weight and my body over the years. So I ditched the scales and I don't even go on the scales anymore. But she was asking, at what point during your cycle should you weigh yourself to get your true weight? Now, my advice, and Tiff, I'd love to hear your view on this, is I would say just as long as you weigh yourself at the same time every day or every week, probably not every day, but every week at the same time, then you can monitor it and just do it that way. And if you possibly can, and this, obviously, if you have to monitor your weight for a certain reason, then do that. But if you don't have to monitor your weight, then I would get rid of the scales and go very much more on how you're feeling and how your clothes fit. That's how I would do it. But what would you say, my love?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. It's a bit like sort of ovulation, isn't it? So I definitely wouldn't do it every day. It will make you obsessed and it's awful. I do it maybe once a week or twice a week, and as you say, Ali, at exactly the same time, and make a note of it. And I think the only way to really see your natural weight is to look at that over time. I also think if you look back at your life as a whole, you know, think about a time when you felt the best, when you were sort of fitting in your own body, and what sort of weight were you then, and you know, when you weren't starving yourself and you weren't overeating as well, but a happy time in your life when there were no other external issues, and maybe that was your natural weight, you know.
Love that. Just one question, because I noticed it's like 5 o'clock. We've been chatting. I mean, I've chatted for hours. I love it. But Georgina's just asked me a question. She said, so many people are ditching dairy. Oh, hang on a second. So many people are ditching dairy. I don't think it affects me, but it's got me questioning my own intake. What's your take on this, and how much is too much? So I'm going to beat the same drum again. I think it's all about understanding you. If you don't think it affects you, then just carry on what you're doing. But only if you're struggling from something that you don't like, whether that be bloating or IBS or weight loss, maybe then reduce it and see what happens to you. It goes right the way back to becoming an expert in yourself and monitoring it. You're not going to know the answer overnight. It's about monitoring yourself. What would you?
My own, yeah. Am I on now? Yeah. Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And there's so much good in dairy. Let's not forget that. You know, I know there've been some documentaries and stuff showing some awful things going on, but actually the nutritional value of dairy really can't be underplayed, and especially for kids as well. So I'm a massive dairy person, but my body responds well to it. And Ali's absolutely right. If you think you might have an issue with dairy, you need to do an elimination diet. So you need to cut it out for a while and monitor whether your symptoms get better, and then slowly reintroduce it. But you know, that's quite a tough ask, and you might need a bit of help to do an elimination diet too. But yeah, go with your body.
Agreed. I think so. I think that's just beating the same drum, isn't it? Work out what works for you. So I think we've answered all the questions from what I can see, from what's come in and what's come in on the comments. So anybody who's watching this either live, or if you're watching this on the replay, then please do leave questions for Tiff and I below, and we'll monitor them and we'll answer them, or send us private messages. likewise will answer them. If you want to know more about either Tiff or I, then I'm going to hand over to Tiff and she can tell you where you can find more information about what she does and how she does that in a second. This is running, I believe, inside my business page, the Heal Yourself Happy page. I also have a private online community where I share a lot of information, not only about food, but also lifestyle habits. So please do come and join me in the Heal Yourself Happy Hub. I'm live in there every day, usually talking about something or other or posting information that I feel that is relevant to the people in the hub. You can join that. There's links in my bio, and I can also put a link underneath here, but do come and join me. It's completely free. It's a safe space. Everybody in the hub is somebody I know, or somebody is invited in, or I've had a conversation with them before, and there's lots of information in there. So do come over there. You can also follow me on Instagram. I'm just heal_yourself_happy, and I talk a lot more about my lifestyle over there. So that's a little bit about me. And I'm just going to say, Tiff, darling, thank you so much. I absolutely loved having chats with you, and I'm sure we'll do another one again, maybe about a specific topic. People probably ask us and we can come back. But Dal, how can people get in touch with you?
Oh, well, firstly, thank you, Ali, for having me on, you lovely woman, you. It's been so fun. I'm sorry we couldn't, react to each other a bit better because of the feedback, but still, I think our facial expressions did it. And I will say Ali's hub is amazing. I'm in there too, posting rude comments mostly, but so do join if you haven't already. You can follow me on Instagram. I'm just very originally Tiffany Rowlands Health, and on Facebook as well. And I've got a new website which has gone live today, which is rather exciting, which again is just tiffanyrolandshealth.com. So please stay in touch. And I'm still doing one-on-one sessions with clients via Zoom, via Skype, or whatever is best for you. So if you need help or support at the moment, we're totally around, aren't we, Al? More than ever before, in fact. More than
ever before, and there's whole loads of health coaches around to help. But Tiff and I still working one-to-one or one-to-many in different ways. So please, if you're struggling with anything in particular that in terms of your health, then reach out to either one of us or both of us. But it's been really lovely to have you all here this Friday afternoon. Now I'm dashing back to the hub because it's time for finding moments of calm, and I've got it all ready. So I'm going to go and find a lovely little space in the garden, and I'll see you all over there shortly. Love you, darling. Thank you so much. Have a lovely weekend, everybody. Happy lockdown weekend. Bye.